Hi, everybody. Okay, it's just turned 1 o'clock, so I'll just give a couple of minutes. I normally give till about 3 minutes past to just let people join on to the meeting. Just as a reminder, at the top of your Teams bar, there's a Q&A button, which you can use throughout to kind of pinboard any questions that we can touch off in the Q&A, or you can put them in the chat as well. And then what we'll do at the end is just kind of run through that and pick up anything that people want to ask as we go through. Hopefully everybody's had a nice 2 weeks since our last webinar. Just give it a little while longer. If you can hear snoring, I do promise that isn't me. The dog is in the background again, and been for a big walk, so very tired, on the sofa, snoring quite loudly today. Hopefully it's not too off-putting. We'll just give them a couple more seconds, and then what I'll do is I'll just make a start on the intro just for people that haven't been to one of our webinars previously, and cover off that bit in advance. So today, for those who haven't been on to one of our webinars previously, in this session today, obviously I'll be talking about funnels and automations for recruitment, and really for any kind of B2B business in terms of like the theory of it. But what I try to do is make sure that I put in some like really practical examples of things. So I've covered off kind of like the theory, and then I've tried to make sure that I've included some real practical examples of things that you could do. I'll be talking about different platforms that you could use, and how to kind of like multi-channel when it comes to your automations and funnels. Okay, so we'll make a start. I did test this before. We had some technical difficulties last time, so I have tested it, and everybody that we tested it with could see my screen all right. But any problems at all, feel free to do like the little raise hand icon at the top, and or message. I will see the chat as we go through as well on that. So once again, up the top of your Teams, you've got the chat function and the Q&A. Feel free to pop questions in there as a bit of a pinboard as we're going through. And then I will try to endeavour to answer all of them as long as we have time. Otherwise, you can book one-to-one with me, or we could record something extra for you guys to help answer some of them questions. Okay, let's make a start. Okay, so just as a bit of a backstory, those who don't know me, I'm Katie Horn. I'm a fractional marketing director with over 20 years experience working in marketing, specifically in the recruitment industry for about the last 8 to 10 years. And I like to think of myself as a really practical marketeer. So I've kind of got lots of experience in different areas across the marketing plethora. I started my career working in websites many, many years ago, and in the car industry. And then it's kind of gone full circle from working at big corporates right down to like micro businesses and even my own business for the last 13 years. So I've got a real mix of experience from, you know, digital to print to TV and media. I've luckily within my career kind of managed to get experience in almost every kind of different element. And so hopefully that puts me in a good position to be able to advise on like strategy and what's working in the markets these days. Okay, so when we start to think about funnels and automations in marketing, I thought it was really important to cover off why it's important to consider these, and sort of what what you're going to be looking at as you move forward. So some of the things that automations and funnels will help you do are things like supercharge your productivity. I'm not going to go into too much detail in terms of automating business processes, which I know is kind of a big thing for everybody nowadays as well. But automations and funnels can help supercharge your productivity. So much like the session that we did about AI, it's definitely not something to replace that human function. It's something to enhance, to supercharge, so make people even more efficient when it comes to their work. And it will allow you to nurture your leads in a more segmented, a more direct content way, based on their behaviours or activities if you do it right. You can also, which we'll come on to, but you can look at like different timings of things. So you'll be hitting people at different stages of that purchase funnel, and that can all be done in the background without you having to manually do it, would be the ultimate goal. I will be covering off some of the things around like fake it till you make it as we move forward too, for those people who haven't got sort of internal systems for this. It will allow you to streamline your candidate and client experience. As recruiters, we'll quite often sort of see that some consultants will do the correct follow-ups when somebody gets placed, others won't. Some people will remember to call people. Some people will only call people that are on their hot lists or they're looking for that moment. So this allows you to streamline their experience, which in the end is going to lead to a better experience for everybody involved, which again will lead to more referrals, and which will again lead to a better relationship with your candidates and clients. So I can't sort of shout enough that how important a lot of this stuff is that we talk about. It allows you to make data-driven decisions, and I've talked about this quite a lot as we've gone through like different types of marketing and covering these off. But data-driven decisions is the way forward, and everything that we do needs to be more intelligent, especially with that new Google rules coming in February, about making sure that you're really segmenting down your data and you're only sending relevant content or relevant messages to the relevant parties. It's becoming even more prevalent now. And then it allows you to scale as well. If you're manually sending emails out one by one to 1,000 people, of course it's going to take you, however many hours. If you can do it en masse or do it in small groups that are particularly segmented, it will allow you to scale up. So again, it goes back to that supercharging your productivity. I love to put in a bit of stats because I do love science. So I just tried to find some stats to just kind of illustrate and kind of back up what I'm talking about here. So, things like 59% of B2B marketers say email personalization increases conversion rates. So that goes back to that, being able to segment people, being able to send them relevant content based on their behaviors, automated, is going to help with your conversion rates. About 80% of HR leaders are saying that they plan to automate at least part of their recruitment process by 2025. So we need to be talking the talk and walking the walk of where our clients are going to be sitting and where they're looking to kind of update and enhance their productivity. You get about a 51% higher open rate, on segmented email campaigns. And this again is just really backing up that whole Google thing that we talked about at the last webinar, and the reason for that, which I won't go into again, but if people did miss that, if they watched the last webinar, we talked about that in some depth. But the email campaigns, the more relevant you can make them, i.e. timely, i.e. they've been triggered by something that then creates this email, the higher your open rates are going to be. And that goes hand in hand with your click-through rates. There's about a 70% increase in click-through rates when the content is relevant and it's triggered and it's based on a behavior or activity or something that they're particularly interested in, or a time. And then it can save you up to about 40% of sales time as well by using automated flows, creating those responses, and we'll come on to examples of that moving forward. Okay, so some of the common misconceptions when it comes to flows and automations and funnels. Definitely people think that they entail costly systems. There are some really easy kind of fake it till you make it systems that you could be using today and get things set up today. If you've got a database of people and you've got enough information in there to allow you to trigger your funnels, then you've got the capability to do this. They don't need to be overly complicated to set up. And I've got some actual examples of funnels that I've drawn out, which I'm going to take you through at the end. But it is kind of simplifying it, you know, especially if you're starting from zero. And, you know, I think one of the things I find when I'm working with recruiters is that they want to go from zero to have an automation for everything in their business and, you know, all of these wonderful ideas. But in the reality, it's going to take you, you know, the next 6 months getting all of those set up. Don't let perfection be the stopper in this. You know, start smaller. If you're building a 15-stage funnel, could you build the first 3 stages initially and then add on as you move forward? So don't overthink it. They don't have to be overcomplicated to get set up. That again goes back to the next one, which is around them taking ages. They can, if you were to set up an automation for everything in your business, then obviously that's going to take a huge amount of time. So it's about prioritizing what's going to bring you return. And that again comes down to you having a clear kind of understanding of what, as a business, your objectives are, and then finding the funnels that are going to feed that most appropriately. There is as well a misconception that people don't like funnels or automations as there's no human touch. I think I saw a stat on something like I'm sure it was 65% of people prefer speaking to a chatbot for those initial kind of questions. So don't rule things like that out. If it's about sort of drilling down on leads or speaking to candidates and getting their information, sometimes an automation can be a fantastic way to do that. It doesn't take time away from your consultants, and it gives you that opportunity to build that profile, which allows you to then segment, which allows you to then do more segmented marketing moving forward. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is start to think about like what the objective is behind this automation or funnel that you want to build. So I wanted to think about like some ideas of things that typically I get told people want to build funnels or look at automations around. So things like engaging with your talent pool. This is a really big one for everybody. So that could be, you know, creating a community within it. It could be, sorry, something's just fallen down in my office. Creating a community within it. It could be helping with candidate regen. It could be identifying people that are interested in particular segments or roles. So it's a great way to kind of segment people as well. You can use it as getting a quick response to inquiries. So like that candidate piece that we talked about, if a candidate is coming onto your website, for instance, and they're interested in a role, is there a kind of chatbot system that you could use that would ask them pre-qualifying questions? Qualifying leads, again, is a really similar thing, but that's a really good objective to have. So if you're utilizing a funnel to qualify a lead, you can now start to think about how you're going to do that moving forward. But it is understanding what it is that you want to achieve from this to help with your overall business goals. You could use it to segment your database, or candidate or client generation. Those are all like typical objectives that I kind of hear from recruiters when I start to talk to them about automations and funnels. The next thing that you have to start to think about is, oh, going the wrong way now. Here we go. The target audience. So this is where we start to think about that customer avatar. Now, we did a big session on customer avatars 2 weeks ago. So if you missed that, I'd say if you go back onto that same website that you registered on, there is a link to the previous videos at the bottom of the page. So you'll be able to access those. So you need to start thinking about identifying your target audience. Now, you may have already done your customer avatar, which is brilliant, but this might be that you're doing client acquisition and it's a new market. So you would need to go away and start to think about that customer avatar and build that. Because this will help you decide, where you're going to be speaking to these people, how frequently you're going to be speaking to them, what segments there are within that group in itself. And you can then utilize your CRM for segmentation, which will help kind of create that personalization. So it comes back again to that importance of these tags and assigning tags within your database to help you identify these people. And the easier and the quicker it is for you to identify these people, the easier it's going to be for you to set up these funnels on automations moving forward. So it's kind of the back to basics thing of make sure that you've got your database tagged to allow you to do more marketing moving forward and be more segmented. Then you need to think about, so we've decided we're going to do a client generation trigger, for instance, or a client generation funnel. We know that we've got a list of hot lists of people that we'd like to target. We've built our customer avatar, and we can now start to think about like what triggers could we use to identify that they're interested in working with us. So you can start to think about like what you're going to have at the top of that funnel. So this could be something like they visited your website. So some of the systems out there, I hate name dropping systems, but for instance, like Force24, you can have it set up so that you have that as a trigger. For when people visit the website, it undertakes a particular flag on that customer, and then you can set up an automation around that. There are other systems that will allow you to do similar things, but that's a really good trigger to know. If a customer's visiting your website and you've got their details in your system and their IP is tracked, you'll be able to identify that that customer has visited your website. And so you can then start to think of that as a trigger for that kind of putting their head above the parapet to say that they're interested. You could even go as far as looking at specific pages of your website. So you could have specific pages set up as triggers. So for instance, if somebody is visiting the contact us page, then they're trying to get through to you. So you would then know that they're particularly interested in speaking to you. If they're visiting the job roles page, they may be looking at similar roles, or it may be a client flipping to a candidate. So you can kind of brief yourself that what's expected, and then you can deal with it appropriately throughout your funnels. Other kind of ideas of initial triggers could be things like a specific date. So for instance, an initial trigger could be, I've decided I want to do a Christmas email message out to everybody. So my trigger at the top of my funnel would be a specific date, because I know I'm going to send that out on, say, like the 20th of December to say, have a lovely Christmas break. So that would be a good one. Customers or client statuses in your CRM. So for instance, in Vincere, you can change the status of a candidate or a client changes. So when someone's placed, they change to place. When they're at interview stage, that will be a trigger that you can use to generate a report even that you want to extract and then set up a trigger elsewhere. Or you can do it within. So if you're on Bullhorn, you've got Bullhorn Automate, Vincere, there's lots of different systems that you can use to then create these funnels off the back of these triggers. But it's just really important to identify like what these triggers are going to be. It could be something like a data tag. So you want to say every security manager, we want to create a funnel that's going out to them people, and it's going to be talking to them about hot candidates that are on the market. So your trigger would be that they have this tag, and then you can set that running in the background, so anybody new that's added to the system gets put into that same funnel. It could be a time of year, so maybe your clients work on a seasonal basis. Is there key times of the year where budgets are set, or so again, you can keep adding or creating these different triggers and then building funnels off the back of that. So one thing that I do with people is sit down and I talk to them about what your kind of trigger points are of when a client would come and use you. And then you can look at off the back of that, creating funnels to help nurture those trigger points. I know we talked about client statuses, but even, process steps. So if somebody's at an interview stage, could that trigger a funnel that sent them interview tips or techniques? There's lots of different ideas of things that you can use as triggers. The other obvious one is things like dates associated with the record. So that could be like, I don't know, candidate birthday or end of contract dates. Once someone's coming to the end of their probation, again, that could be used as that initial trigger. So you could identify, a contract's coming to an end, and that's one of my examples later on, but a contract coming to an end, or a candidate's birthday, or the day a candidate starts their new job, a 3-month probation period, the end of that. So once you've built the automation, and this is the benefit and the kind of great thing behind this, once you've built that, the idea is that these people continue to fall into this trigger and fall into that funnel. So once it's built once, the idea is that you then leave it and it goes off and keeps running consistently as you move forward in the business. The next thing to think about is the platforms. So, there are lots of different systems out there that allow you to build funnels. So you've got like email automation systems. Anything that I do, I always look to see how we can cross channels, because marketing is always going to be more effective when you go across multiple channels. So you can boost your engagement by about 300% by utilizing multi-channel marketing, and people will increase their trust in your brand when they see you multiple times. So what I mean by that, for instance, is if you have a birthday message or a first day of your new job message that you want to send out to people, in an ideal world, you'd want to do it across multiple channels. So you have to think and consider the different platforms. So don't restrict yourself to email. You've got email, direct mail, you've got socials, you've got pay-per-click. You can do pay-per-clicks, for instance, through LinkedIn to a specific list. So if you've got a candidate list or a client list that you're utilizing, you can upload that list into LinkedIn and serve ads specifically to those people. So if you're generating a new area and you have like a target list, the more kind of visible you are to these people, the better. So if you're hitting them with like a 3-pronged attack, great. You can use your SEO, so you can look at like the keywords that these people will be researching, what's their trigger points, what's their pain points, which we talked about previously, and you can start to build an SEO plan specifically around them. So again, you're not just sending them an email, you're not just sending them a text, you're hitting them in multiple areas. Start to build content specifically for them around their pain points, specifically relevant to them, whether it's that you could run webinars for them or do interview series for them. Look at different ways that you can engage with them. So think outside the box. A funnel doesn't always have to be a sales funnel. It can just be engagement. If you're thinking about doing webinars, you could have a whole funnel around inviting people to be guest speakers, round tables. There's lots of different ways that you can use different platforms to engage and make it part of your overall funnel. The funnel doesn't always have to just be drawn around like what the email is. It's important to think about the outside of that kind of internal system too. Okay, so then you need to think about like measuring and what your triggers are going to be off the back of that. So once you've created your funnel, that's great. How are you going to measure it? What is it that you'd set as that objective, and what's going to be the end result? So if you were doing a candidate happy birthday message, probably your goal of that is just to create some warmth and relationship with that person. So you wouldn't necessarily have another trigger off the back of that. But if I was doing something where I wanted to try and segment my data and find out more about things that they're interested in, I might send out an email which have multiple different sections, and then based on their behavior within that email, i.e. what they've clicked on, I may then have another trigger off the back of that that says, if John has clicked on job roles within my newsletter, then I know he's interested in roles. So in 2 days' time, I'm then going to send him a follow-up message, maybe on email, maybe on LinkedIn, whatever it is, that is around like, are you looking for roles? Here's some roles, here's some tips on how you could update your LinkedIn when you're looking for a new role. You know, it's thinking outside the box of what that next trigger is going to be. Lots of systems do this for you. So they will create a customer or a candidate score, i.e. the more that somebody engages with you, the higher the score they give that person. Again, that's something that you have to set up with these people like Force24 or Sourcewell at the beginning of that setup. So it's really important to understand what needs to kind of go into that at the beginning. But yeah, is it that you want a report to be sent? Is the next action point that you want someone to get them on the phone? Is the next action point that you just need to flag it to you know, your internal team to take some kind of action? So it's important to think about like what you want that next trigger to be. And like I said, it can be nothing. It can just be that that customer is seeing your name and associating with a warm message around their birthday, which will increase their brand awareness and loyalty. And then, to be fair, if it was that person, I would probably then put them into a referral funnel in a couple of weeks, but that's something else. Okay, so don't overthink it. I'm really hoping that I'm not making this sound complicated. I do know, because it's something that I do all the time, I find it like probably a little bit simplified in my head, but it's because I do it all the time. So if I lose anybody at any point, or you're just like, actually, I don't really get this, like I said, you can book a one-to-one with me, and I'm happy to talk through any of this stuff with you guys. Okay, so I thought it'd be good to just talk about some ideas of funnels that you could do. And it was funny, I was writing these lists out for candidates and clients, and I've realised that the lists are pretty much the same. So I'm going to just talk you through some of the kind of typical things that we see in terms of like funnels and automations. So things like birthday wishes, I've talked about already, but it's a really nice one. It's a non-harmful one. It's a just a nice gesture to send to people. And you know, we talked about like that, removing the human element. I don't think anybody would be miffed to receive a birthday message from a company rather than it be like a personal text from their consultant, unless they're working with that consultant at the time. Christmas, holiday wishes, any kind of like key times within your kind of industry that people will relate to. Messages on their first day of their job, obviously, is a great one. End of probation, end of contract. So sending them, that's one of the ones I'm going to cover off, but sending them stuff at the end or at these key trigger points, or building your automations and funnels at these points. Career advice, so that can be a really good one, and a nice one that isn't a complete sales message. New roles, so once people have flagged, you know, that they're looking for a role, how are you kind of then maintaining that relationship and keeping up to date with whether they're still looking? Contract roles, community events, so if you've got a talent community, how are you promoting those events? Are you doing webinars? How often are you promoting them? Monthly newsletters and content shares are a brilliant way. I'm a massive fan of newsletters. Candidate regen surveys. So are you still looking? Which then would create a trigger of a yes, no. Industry surveys are a really nice way to kind of keep in touch with people in a non-sales way, and you're going to give them some insights off the back of it. That's kind of two-pronged, because obviously the more insights you get from your candidates, you can then obviously sell that on to your clients as a benefit too. Research and reports, so putting together research, undertaking research and creating your own internal reports. Segmented content based on behavior, so think again about what those triggers would be, and then creating specific content based on what the action is that they're taking. So if someone's coming to the end of their contract, would you want to be sending them content around how to find your next contract role? If somebody's handed in their notice a previous role to start a new perm job, could it be content around managing that kind of notice period, how to cope with that, how to say no when you get like a counter offer, all of that kind of stuff. Website visits, so again, that thing of if people have been visiting your website, chances are that they want to engage with you, so having things like that as a trigger, like could you send them something off the back of them doing that? And then obviously you've got your warm leads and your hot leads funnels, and these are going to be the key ones, because these are people that you're wanting to work with, that are putting their head above the parapet in some way, and so it'll be about nurturing them and kind of building a funnel around them with multi-touch. And then you've got to obviously think about in that funnel, when you start to put them down as a cooler lead. And again, that's something that you don't need to worry about right away, but you do need to think about moving forward, because you don't want to be talking to somebody every day who's once 6 months ago said that they were interested in using your services, because you'll just end up in the spam box. So it's about that relevant content, making it timely is really key. So like I said, in terms of like the client side, the list of kind of what I would see as the main funnels that we tend to set up were very similar. I guess it would just be the triggers and the outcomes, or the content would be slightly different. So, from a contract role perspective, when it's coming to an end, the messaging to a client would obviously be very different, because it would be talking about, did you want to extend the contract? Here's your options to extend, like whatever it is that you want to put forward to them. Okay, so I'll come on to some practical examples of things that I think are like an easy, and these are in my ideals. So the first one I want to look at is like a 4 month out of the contract ending. So that would be my trigger. So I'd be looking in my database to say, show me people whose contract ends in 4 months' time. Now, if I was doing this and I didn't have like a Force 24, or I didn't have an Elay system, or I didn't have anything like that, and I was doing it manually, I'd probably be exporting that database on a weekly basis, and then uploading it into a database on something like MailChimp or MailerLite, and then sending something out, or Constant Contact or something like that. You can even use Outlook and Word. You could go as basic as that, if you want to kind of just send a really simple message. So that could be around like contract extension, for instance. Your client, typically our contractors get asked to extend their contracts. Is this something that you would be interested in? So straight away, you've got a great way of kind of flagging whether they're going to be interested in continuing or looking for new contract or whatever it is. So it's creating that engagement. I'd then start to look at things like, a follow-up message with a link to book a career chat. I'd then probably be asking them if I've got, say, a virtual bench, for asking them to join that. So again, it's just another way of keeping hold of that contractor to say, there's lots of opportunities. If you join the virtual bench, we can keep you abreast of like new contracts that are coming up. If this isn't going to extend, you can book the career chat there. So it gives them an opportunity to talk through like where they see their future, what's their next steps, where they want to be. So again, it's helping build that rapport with you, build that relationship with you, putting you in a good position to then sell that contractor out, or utilize that contractor for roles that you've got coming up. off the back of that as well, you need to make sure that the consultant's being notified at some way. So I definitely would have that in my funnel, to say, right, this person's now coming to an end. They flagged that they're interested in extending, or they flagged that they're not interested in extending, and then that would then fall as a hot lead to the consultant. You might keep them in a warm leads funnel, which would be kind of, say, like a weekly content-led, specific around that kind of coming contracting. So it could be talking about, you know, like the challenges of contracting, you know, umbrella versus limited, like what's the things that kind of contractors, or the pain points, and that again goes back to understanding that avatar. But it's just producing relevant content on a regular basis. And the other things I've got at the bottom there, which I think are really good examples of how you can like boost this funnel to kind of increase engagement, things like an SMS reminder. So SMS response rates are so much higher than email, especially if you can make it really simple. So, you know, click here and book your career chat now. People are more likely to do that than if they get that via email, or a direct mail postcard reminder. You know, if they're not one to answer their emails or LinkedIn, depending on, and you will know where your customers sit and how they like to communicate, but you could look at things like that. You could also look at like targeted LinkedIn ads based on that database. So just reminding people that you're there. It could be showcasing contract roles that are coming up. It could just be a brand awareness piece. But that's just a really nice, simple end of contract funnel that you could build just literally using email and a database, or you could go really full on and use a lovely system that would do all of these automation things for you, it just paying the price for that. Okay. The next one that I just thought was a nice little example as well is like the new job one. So you've got things like the candidate, the trigger would be, for instance, the candidate being placed in a perm role. You then start to think about like what's the pain points for that person. So it's the counter offers, it's having to deal with telling everybody they're leaving, it's that having to work in that company, say, for like the next 2 months and dealing with that, you know, kind of guilt of leaving. So I'd start to think about like what content could I put together that will help them with that process and to get them across the line for you, because the last thing you want is the candidate to pull out. So I'd start to talk about like notice periods and how to manage that, and how to manage, you know, counter offers. And this would be probably a point where you would have a more frequent conversation with this person, and then it would almost become like a countdown message to the new role. So it could be like tips and hints of like how to kind of fit in when you start somewhere new. It could be messages about like the culture of the company they're going to, if you wanted to really be granular about it. You could start to utilize outside of that some touch-based SMS. So from the consultant, an SMS that could just be like, hey John, you know, only 2 weeks now until you start your new role. Hope you're excited. If you've got any queries or anything, don't forget I'm always here for a chat. And then when it comes to their first day, you can look at like a message that went out around like good luck for your first day, an SMS during the day of how's it going, or how did it go at the end of the day. Would it be nice to send them a direct mail piece to the office of where they've just joined, so everybody sees the card being delivered, they put it on their desk, it could have your branding in there. So again, it's just kind of outside that email funnel, like where you can add these extra layers or triggers to it. And then on the back of that, I'd be looking to feed these people into a referral and a probation funnel. So what I mean by that obviously is a probation funnel normally is 3 months. So I'd have, you know, content around like how to maximize your probation period, questions that you should be asking new employers, things that if there's a problem, speak to us, you know, look at different ways that you can kind of touch base with these people as they move forward through their probation, and then also looking for referrals. They're going to be at their highest, most likely place to refer you once they've started that role, because they'll be feeling really good about your services and the service that you've personally delivered to them. So it's an excellent time to ask for referrals. The other thing that you can do around that, again, just to help with that kind of loyalty and nice feeling, is you could add them into a targeted ad campaign that was just around brand awareness. So it doesn't necessarily even need to be sort of trying to sell them anything at that point. You just want them to see your name on a regular basis on that period up to and once they've started. And then I think this was the last one that I did, just as a bit of an example. So candidate regen. So the trigger for this one, for instance, could be that the candidates had no activity for 6 months with us. And it could, the first thing that you did was just a really simple, are you still looking kind of survey. And if they came back and said, no, we're not currently looking, then you could put them into a separate call funnel. That would just be on a kind of periodic basis. You're sending them something that isn't sales led, that it is just information and relevant content based to their industry. And then if they then start to click through and start to build up activity, or click on the section that's roles, for instance, then you'd want that to act as a trigger to put them back into the warm candidate funnel. And within that warm candidate funnel, I'd look at things like sending them hot roles, content around like job seeking, career advice. And then again, thinking about ways that you can boost that. You can start to look at things like touch-based SMS, direct mail postcards delivered to their home, targeted ads on LinkedIn. So it's again thinking outside the box of like ways that you can kind of touch these people in various I was about to say various places, that sounds wrong. Touch make good that's put me off completely. It's a good way for touch points in various ways with these candidates as you move forward through the process, and will again help you with when it comes to referrals. The warmer and the more engaged you can make these people, the more frequently you can speak to them without trying to sell them something, the better the relationship you will have, and it will help put you more as a thought leader rather than just that recruiter that's on the phone trying to push them into a role. Okay, so like I've always said with all of this stuff, it's not about reinventing the wheel. There's lots of people using these funnels already. Those ones that I've just talked you through are pretty standard. You can find them probably if you did a Google search on like recruiter funnels, candidate regen, it would probably give you, I get it on my Instagram all the time coming up, like people trying to sell me and like ready to go funnels, and they're all pretty much much for much, but it is trying to be about making sure that the content is relevant and interesting for your customer avatars. So once again, if you haven't watched that customer avatar and the importance of that, then definitely go back and watch that other webinar. I think it's about 30 minutes if you take out the Q&A and stuff like that. So I tried to keep them all as short, as sweet as possible. Key takeouts for today then. Make your customer avatars. I know I feel like I really bang on about that, but it makes your life so much easier. And especially if you want to use things like AI to help you with all of this stuff. If you've built that customer avatar and you've fed it into your AI, the AI can help you with all of these things and writing your messages as a draft, and then you take them away and you turn them into like a more personalized thing for you. Don't just copy and paste. Pick some easy wins to start. So things that will just help even boost the appreciation feeling with your customers or candidates, make them feel a bit warm and fuzzy, will help you in the long run. So don't discount just the easy ones like birthdays. Fake it till you make it. Start simple. You can do this without any systems. You can do it using email and Outlook even and Word, and do an email mail merge. Be as creative as possible. Be clear on what your objective is of what you want to get out of these funnels, because that will determine how you deliver them. Be sure to have a follow-up plan to make sure that you maximize your investment here. I know it is only time, but it's still an investment. So you want to make sure that you have the things in place to follow up. So if you're getting a flag to say this customer's interested and they're looking at your website, you need to make sure that there's somebody responsible within your business and making that follow-up call, and they are responsible until that client goes to a no or becomes a cold lead, following up in that way. And look at ways to integrate with all of your marketing across this. As I always say, it's all about multi-touch. It's all about making sure that you are kind of reaching out in as many ways as possible to help build that feeling of trust with your clients or candidates. Okay, just a really quick one. Dates for your diary. The next one that we're going to be looking at is rethinking marketing to make genuine connections. So that's going to be talking about taking content even further and how you can really personalize it to your customer avatars. We'll then be talking about Generation Z and how to market to them. And then again, beyond blogs, following forward. If anyone has anything else that they'd like us to cover, then do feel free to drop us a message. You can put it in the chat or anything. Shameless plug before I move to any questions. Obviously, we help people with their marketing planning. We also offer a mentoring service if you've got an in-house marketing team, or we do board level strategy. So any of those things are of interest to you, then please do. You will get an email following this with a copy of the slides. It will have a link to the video as well. And in there, there'll be a link where you can book a one-to-one. Even if you're not interested in taking any of our services, I do still offer those one-to-ones. So you can still book a free consultation with me and just chew the fat on marketing, which is like my favorite thing to do. And then my offer to you is our free consultation. I always feel like I really rattle through this because I hate selling. But if you do want to speak to me about marketing, then do drop me a booking. Okay, any questions? Let's have a look. Johnny, great tips here and nicely laid out. Thanks. Mark Stevens, great presentation. Q&A. I'm really new into this, and hang on. Oh, where's it gone? Emma, hey Emma. I'm really new into this, and when doing some research, all examples of funnels are related to candidates. What I'm interested in is the funnel for getting new clients. Any tips, resources that can help me understand flows to get new clients? You do find that like there's a lot around candidate, like a lot of the systems, for instance, like Sourcewell, was built all around like candidate generation, and the market fluctuates, doesn't it? One quarter it'll be all about candidate generation and then it'll flip to client gen. So I think the key is that they are still quite similar in as much as it's all about building relationships, all about building that trust and thinking about that customer avatar and what their pain points are, and then building content around that. I definitely think when it comes to clients, their sort of industry insights reports, not necessarily ebooks, because that can be a bit long-winded, but some piece of content, so say for instance like a salary guide, can be a great way to capture data, because it's something of high value, capture that data which you can then nurture and develop as you move forward. And then you can start to think about, like, within that journey, what the triggers are going to be that will identify them as sort of putting their head above the parapet and wanting to kind of utilize your services. You're not going to take away from, and every recruiter wants this, you're not going to take away from the consultants getting on the phones. That's still going to be the best way, but you can make their lives easier, so you can get them so when they do get on the phones, this customer would already know who you are. So if you can build a database of people that you want to target, you could do LinkedIn ads that would just be brand building, or giving away a piece of content, or doing a webinar that you invite them to, looking at all of those different things. Another great thing that I've seen people use are like the podcast or interview series as a great way to kind of build relationships with people that you want to work with. And then they've used funnels to generate interest in that. So that's another really good one that I've seen work across multiple recruiters. Hopefully that helps. Like I said before, Emma and Harriet, if you do want to book a one-to-one, I'm always happy to kind of just chew the fat on marketing, especially for people that are new. You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, I try to keep these usually to about 45 minutes because I know time is money for recruiters. So I appreciate you all being here. And the recording, like I said, will go around. So if there are bits that you've missed, or if you want to kind of share it with anybody, do please, and I got told off for forgetting this, do please put it on your LinkedIn that you've seen this today, and if you've enjoyed it, that'd be really good if you could give us a plug, because I really love marketing, so I want all of the recruiters to get better at it, and then we can hopefully push, and then everybody will have a marketing team by the end of the year. Okay, cool. All right, so I think that's it. Like I said, I'll send round all of the links to the video, the presentation, everything else, and do give us a plug if you've enjoyed today. We'd really appreciate it. Katie from Your Marketing Needs, tag me in. All right, thanks guys.